Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Gator and I am a scientist at Carnegie Mellon University. And we are happy to be putting on this demonstration video for you for a day in the life of a chemist. But before we get started with the video, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about myself, my family life, my upbringing, and how I've sort of been able to get to the place where I am now as a scientist at CMU. I was born in Miami, Florida, to two native Bahamian parents, so my parents and all of my entire family was from the Bahamas, which is an absolutely beautiful place. If you ever get the opportunity to go at some point, I definitely suggest it. The beaches are amazing. That's probably one of my favorite things and the things I miss the most at this point, honestly. Especially living in Pittsburgh where, the snow is nice, but we're entirely landlocked otherwise, so I don't get the opportunity to go swimming in the ways that I used to. So just a little bit about my family. My dad was a construction worker / contractor, and my mom focused on floral design and home decor accessories. And I have 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest sibling in my family. So that means I always got what I wanted from my parents, and my older brothers probably did not like me much growing up for that. But one thing I could say that I really valued that I got from my parents was just a focus on education and really putting that as at the forefront of my values. They themselves did not have the opportunity to finish high school, but one thing that I noticed with them is that they really put a lot of emphasis on making sure that I cared about my education, that I always did my best when it came to classes, that I held myself accountable along the way, and they would always make sure to hold me accountable as I was going through the early days in school up through the time I graduated high school. So that really stuck with me, and I'm really thankful for my parents emphasizing that in my early days in life. So while I was in elementary school, I would say at that stage in life I wanted to be a medical doctor. The thing that made me really want to go in that direction was I just like going to the doctor's office all the time. It made me feel good as a kid. Whenever I was, sick, and I know the doctor would see me and I would feel like better instantly as soon as I left out of there. I was the strange kid that actually looked forward to taking shots because, you get candy afterwards, so why not, right? Sounded like a sweet enough deal to me. I also always got a chance to play with any toys that were in there. It was just a really fun time before I even got to see the doctor. And the doctors were always super interactive. They seemed to really enjoy what they were doing. So I thought, maybe one day I could be that person for someone that, really makes them, feel better after having a visit with me. My favorite subject in elementary school was probably math. And I don't know if it was necessarily that I liked math itself as much, but I would say that, myself and my friends, it was probably the most competitive subject for me. So it was something we always look forward to, seeing who would finish a mental math part first, or going through times tables and stuff like that, seeing who finishes those quizzes first. It was just a really good time to sort of put yourself up against your friends and see who would come out on top of those kinds of things. So it was the subject, I guess, where there was the most competition early on, and it really made me feel good about my achievements and what I was doing with my education, on top of what my parents had already taught me at the time. As I went through elementary school, middle school, and high school, I still wanted to be a doctor, but when I got to college, that got tested a little bit, and I started to think differently about what I wanted to do for a career. I had a lot of opportunities to try new things while I was in college, which is something I'm very thankful for. One of the experiences for me that really helped guide my focus towards a career path was having the chance to work in a laboratory on chemistry research. And at the time, I was really excited about that idea. It was a bit different than what I wanted to do as a doctor, but I figured, I enjoyed chemistry as a class, and I enjoyed working with my hands a lot. And one thing I would say about laboratory experience in chemistry is that you get the chance to work with your hands all the time when you're making different molecules. So I really was able to connect with that experience. And I wanted to learn more about, chemistry itself, my research, and how I could use, the molecules that I make to have an impact in people's lives every day. Because that was one thing that really always stuck out to me about being a doctor. But having the chance to do something different, I saw that, there were opportunities to do the exact same thing with chemistry. And it was something that I've enjoyed even more than going to the doctor's office as a kid at that point in time. During the spring of 2018, I was fortunate to be accepted into the Department of Chemistry at Carnegie Mellon University. I started my research there in the summer of 2018, and what my research focused on was the making of these specialty plastics called polymers for alternative energy uses. So what is a polymer? The best way I would think of a polymer is it's one very, very large molecule that is made up of a bunch of very tiny molecules that come together with one another in the process called the formation of a chemical bond. So let's imagine that this is just one molecule. If I have another one, I can sort of begin to string them together. And if I add on more and more of these, eventually what I end up with is a much bigger molecule. And this is just an example of what a polymer would be. So what's next after graduate school? Usually the major career pathways for a chemist are working as a professor, where you can continue to do research and then ultimately teach while having a research group of your own, where you have the opportunity to mentor younger students and sort of guide them into the field or into their direction of their choosing. The other common career outcome for graduate students that focus in chemistry is to work for a large company in an industrial setting. And usually these types of companies are responsible for making the goods and products that we are using on a day-to-day basis. Choosing between becoming a professor or working in the industry setting is a really tough decision to make. Right now, I'm leaning more towards becoming a professor just so I have the opportunity maybe to give back and maybe mentor students that were just like me. But industry also has the benefit of doing what I do in a sense, but on a much different scale, where I can continue to make materials that are useful in everyday life. So we'll see when the time comes to make that decision, but both of them are really great options coming out of graduate school. Well, I'm glad to have had the chance to tell you a little bit about my background and upbringing and how that's helped me get to where I am today as a scientist. And now we'll get to see a little bit about the day in my life as a chemist.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Gator and I'm a scientist at Carnegie Mellon University. And today I'm going to be telling you about polymers, which are really big molecules that I get to make on a day-to-day basis. Polymers are used in everyday materials such as plastic bags or even water bottles. We'll be going through a few of the specialty polymers or plastics that I get to make each and every day when I'm in the lab.
Currently, I'm working inside of a glove box. Here is where I prepare the mixtures I need in order to make a polymer. After I make the polymer, the next thing I do is transform it into a stringy white solid. This helps to make sure that it is a pure material before I move on to the next step. To remove the solid from the liquid, I have to use a filter. I can then add the polymer into a glass container, as shown here. The next thing I do is dissolve the polymer so that it can be made into a thin, clear plastic after evaporating the liquid. As you can see, I'm shaking the container so that the polymer can dissolve. To make the plastic, again I will filter the polymer mixture to make sure that there are no small pieces of solid that end up in this metal dish. I let the dish sit out in the open air so the liquid can evaporate, and after about an hour, I am left with a clear, flexible plastic film. It helps to add water to remove the film from the dish. The clear film looks great and is ready to be tested for specialty uses for alternative energy. The device my material is used in is called a fuel cell. A fuel cell can be used to create power from hydrogen and oxygen gases as fuels, and these react to then make water as a byproduct. With water as the main byproduct, this makes fuel cells a very environmentally friendly power source. We will be using a fuel cell to power this model car shown here. Now I'll be adding water to a tank on the back of our model car. The fuel cell in this demonstration needs water in order to generate our hydrogen and oxygen as fuels. After I fill the tank with water, I next have to fill the fuel cell itself with water. You'll see me use this syringe in order to pull water from the tank into the fuel cell. This is done so that we can generate hydrogen and oxygen from the water that we place into the fuel cell. You'll notice that I do this on both sides of the car. In order to create the gases hydrogen and oxygen from water, the fuel cell needs a bit of added energy. In order to do this, we'll attach a battery pack to provide an energy source. As we zoom in, you can see the water level change as the hydrogen and oxygen gas replace the liquid water that is inside of the tanks at the back of the car. Over time, we begin to see bubbles coming from the tank, indicating that our car is ready to go. We attach the wires from the motor to the fuel cell, and now we can watch our car speed off. Well, it's been a great day in the lab and now it's time to head home. I hope this video has helped you get a glimpse into the life of a scientist and how our work impacts the world each and every single day. Thank you all for your attention. Goodbye.